Joining me now to discuss this further is Joseph Humire. He's from the Center for a Secure Free Society. We want to thank you for coming in. The judge says there's no there. What's your thought?
Well, Mike, I think there's two things. One is the timeliness. I mean, this has been so quick that they reviewed this case. We're talking about less than a month since the judge has been appointed, the new prosecutor was assigned, and I mean, you're talking about thousands of hours of evidence or wiretaps, several witnesses that need to be examined. So I think it was a very kind of a rush judgment on a case that could have potentially was very important and could have took much longer to examine more carefully. The second point is one thing is the evidence, and another is the argument. Unfortunately, we're never going to get to hear the Dr. Niesman's argument, but I think his argument was going to be actually more important than the evidence, because I think what he was trying to make an argument for was that this case, the criminal case, was something that was evolving and perhaps something that he should be taken to the international level. That, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see because we don't have Dr. Niesman with us to make the argument.
It's interesting. You talk about the argument, you talk about the evidence. We could also talk about the bombing. We could talk about his mysterious death. We could talk about these protests. In fact, we'll talk about all of them. But as you look at the whole landscape, what do you see as the most important at this stage?
Well, there's three different cases, right? So there's the case right now that just got dismissed by the judge that had to do with a criminal case against the president. Then you have the Amia case, which is a historic case that's been ongoing, and so they're going to have a new prosecutor.
And still no answers.
Correct, no answers. The Iranian government refused the indictment that was initially presented in 2007. And then you also have now the case again on his death and what the circumstances of his death were and who's the actual suspects. So, I mean, you have a multitude of judicial challenges, legal challenges, and prosecutions that are going to be going on in Argentina, and all of these somehow linked to the president.
How long can this go on without some kind of stitching this together and coming up with some answers, at least with Niesman's death? And the longer that lingers, what does that do in Argentina?
Well, I think the longer it lingers, the more beneficial it is for the actual current Argentinian government, because the longer it lingers, the more attention gets away from it, and it starts to turn to elections and the political cycle that's going to be happening this year as well in Argentina. I think, honestly, this is a problem that can't be solved within Argentina itself. It needs to be solved within the international community. My opinion is that I think Dr. Niesman wanted to take this to the international community. That's why I say his argument's important, because I think he was using Cristina, Kirchner, the president, as a sort of bait and switch. He was going to bait that case to be able to take it to the international level and switch the attention towards the Iranians, who are having a conversation right now with the P5+1 for the nuclear negotiations. Matter of fact, in one of his safety deposit box, I think it was at the prosecutor's house or maybe at his office, they found a document that said he was going to exactly do just that. He was going to take this case before the Security Council. I think that was his move. Unfortunately, we'll never get to see that.
How would you describe the temperature within Argentina right now?
The temperature's hot. The temperature is much hotter than Washington. It's a political environment that's very volatile right now, and this is what concerns me to some degree, because I think a lot of people are using the Niesman case as political ammunition to go against the president. I mean, I can understand their motives, but reality is we have to focus on the facts of the case. We have to focus on what arguments make sense and the logic that determines. And unfortunately, right now in Argentina, that's going to be very hard. That's why I made the point that I think that this is something that's going to have to be solved at the international level, at least at the regional level, but it's going to need outside support. In Argentina, be very difficult because of the political environment.
What about reform of the country's intelligence services? What do you think about that?
Well, that seems like a kind of an opportunistic thing that happened because of all the circumstances that exist with Dr. Niesman's death. Before his death, the Argentine president was basically firing certain intelligence officials that have gone missing, that we don't know where they are. I think that she uses this as an opportunity to clean house within the intelligence services, something that she had been wanting to do for a long time. But to some degree, I think that it's not completely unrelated, but it's a different issue than what we're seeing with the exact problem with what Dr. Niesman was working on, the Amia case and others.
Well, Joseph, thanks for coming in. Great to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again because this story is not going away.
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, thanks again.